Call to order, Town of Prescott Valley Work Study Meeting, June 2nd, 2022. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Kinsinger.
Present.
Councilmember Dickinson.
Here.
Councilmember Hepperly.
Here.
Councilmember Schumacher.
Present.
Councilmember Packard.
Present.
Vice Mayor Hunt. Not here. Mayor Polguta.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. Item 2A, YMCA update. Oh, we're just going right to the A team right now, coming on down. Wow. Welcome, gentlemen.
Good to see you. It's good to see all of you. Ivan, you've changed a little bit since we've last been here. But it's always good to be here, always good to be in front of supporters of our project. And a year ago was the time when we signed the contract, the development agreement. And we had said that we were going to work hard to get set up an LLC in front of that, which we've done, and then we were going to get out and hit the bricks with the capital campaign, which we've done. We've been involved in the silent phase of the capital campaign, and we're also working diligently with a couple of companies to try to get the new market tax credit process done, and we are excited about having an executive letter prepared for the end of this year for that process. For more details, I'll turn that over to Wayne, but wanted to say thank you for your support. I know that Don's wife is on our board, and she is out and asking people to support our project, which is exactly what we want our board members to do. So if you haven't been asked, I am asking you, please support our project. Thank you, Brenda.
Mr. Bennett.
Mayor, Council, what he said. I every time we talk to anybody, they say, when are you going to break ground? We don't know when we're going to break ground because before we break ground, we're going to have a very good idea of what the facility is that we're going to build. And we can't really determine exactly. We have a concept, we have a model. That model is going to require us to be successful in our current $10 million capital campaign. We are comfortable where we are with that campaign. I'll give you an update on that in a moment. But our timeline, again, looks like this. We break ground, and before that, we know what facility we're going to build. And before we know what facility we're going to build, we have to have some pretty high confidence of how much we can afford in order to build that facility. And so we are, our silent phase is the phase in which we identify large donors. And so that we have confidence in terms of the large donor base. And we anticipated that phase would come to an end at about the end of June. So we've got about another month, less 2 days, to get to that point. And we have we're pretty happy with what's going on. We have made about $18 million in asks. We have already commitments for slightly over $3 million, and we have $12 million outstanding, and some of those are some of our major asks. We'd love to have greater predictability on that, but some of these are foundations and things. We have to operate on their cycle, their funding cycles. Some of them have to do with international events that are happening around the world that we don't have control of. So we have to operate on some of these large donor timelines. But we do have our fundraisers, our consultants have done these campaigns before, and they remain confident, as we do, that we are moving forward on schedule. With regard to the PVCCI, the LLC that we built to have the relationship with the town of Prescott Valley, we have been meeting, that group has been meeting, and one of the things that we have been doing, and we did this at our last meeting, was to make sure that we are meeting our deadlines and that we are sensitive to the deadlines that we have in terms of obligations to the town of Prescott Valley in that agreement. One of those deadlines is, well, one of them is that phase one, which ends with the beginning of construction, it was a 2-year timeline. It's now a 1-year timeline from now, with the provision of an additional 12 months if needed to extend that timeline. And we don't know really where we are on that, but I just wanted you to know that we are watching it. We are on it. like a rat on a Cheeto, and we are, we know that we are paying a lot of attention to that. There are a lot of moving parts to this, but we are not alarmed by anything. We're pretty comfortable with where we are, and we look forward to your participation as individuals. You know, our board, every one of our board members with the YMCA contributed to this campaign. We already have contributions from your council, and so we'll look forward to your engagement there as well. Can we answer any questions? Sir.
Would you please restate again, what do we think, number one, is going to be the total, and what your goal would be? What would be a perfect amount of money it's going to cost for the Y, number one? And then how much of that do you need before you start construction? Is there a percentage of that amount then, or how does that work?
Yeah, so thankfully, construction costs are absolutely stable, and we know exactly to the penny how much it's going to cost us to build this.
Okay.
Our original estimates from Grow Development, our consultants who did the study that the Town of Prescott Valley graciously funded, their estimate was in the neighborhood of $25 million for the facility. We did a reality check on those numbers, and candidly, we feel those numbers were a little high. So that would lead us to estimate south of that, but then that was before all the construction issues became apparent, and that's going to make that number go north.
Right.
So I wish that I could give you a good number.
Okay, but I mean, that was kind of a goal originally.
Yes, and the 10 million, just so you have this, we have the 5 million commitment from the Town of Prescott Valley, which launched the whole process and made it happen.
Right.
We are now engaged in a $10 million effort. That would get us to, and then we have the land, thanks to the donation from the Fain family. And so that would get us to 15 million.
Okay.
The new market tax credit, if successful, and we are doing everything necessary to be successful, depending upon the size of the project, will generate somewhere between 4 and 6 million. So that will get us to pretty close to that number without having to secure financing.
Okay.
And so these are all calls that we're going to, we're watching. We're going to make those calls as time moves forward and we have more confidence in our numbers.
Okay, then in addition to the commitments that you have now from some of your larger donors, are some of those, besides the initial contribution, have they committed to, like, say, another 1, 2, 3 year contribution in addition to one they're making now? Have you had success with that, or how has that been?
Yes. So, yes. Short answer is yes. Slightly less short answer is that our donor campaign offers people the option to make a series of donations over a period of time, and depending upon the size of the gift and so forth, that could be 3 years, it could be 5 years in some very large cases, et cetera. But part of what we have commitments for are based upon those very kinds of opportunities.
Okay.
And the other thing that I will say, because as we move around in the community, people are going, well, are you guys doing anything? And when we are, but we are intentionally being quiet. And that quiet phase, really part of what's happening now has already begun, and that is that we have particular prospects that are known entities that we have been talking to and beginning the dialogue and going through that whole process. Now we're starting to now find, thanks to our fund development people, we have actually some other very good prospects that have appeared. And now we're starting to reach out to yet other prospects who are not yet prospects, they are suspects.
Right.
And so we're sort of getting to the end of the quiet phase as we begin to reach out selectively. And that process is going to start, you're going to start seeing that quietly, but it'll still be quiet until we're ready for a very big launch, and then it'll be a very big launch.
Thank you very much.
You betcha. Other questions?
No, just to let you know, this is fairly typical in a capital campaign. It's normally you get all your money right out of the chute. Normally it's over a period of time. The goal is aggressive, and that's how we know it's a good goal, because we know what we want to bring to the town of Prescott Valley is something that everybody will be proud of. But I don't think, in the research that I've done on the town of Prescott Valley here, other than the hospital, which raises money and bond finances large projects, I don't think there's been a large nonprofit effort for a facility like this in Prescott Valley. So just to let you know, this is part of that process. This is how that works. This is the third capital campaign that I've been involved, and at least Wayne's second. And the capital campaign advisory group that we brought on board, they do these things all the time. So if you're wondering, where are you at? Are you close? We're right about where we thought we would be. We'd love to have some big surprises come our way.
Right.
But this is
Good
pretty
ones.
typical.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you. Moving on, item 2B, wildfire safety and fire mitigation. Welcome, sir.
Welcome. Good afternoon, Mayor and members of the council. My name's Robbie Hool. I'm with Arizona Public Service. I'm the Northwest Supervisor for the Quad Cities. And it's interesting, at 3 o'clock, PowerPoint, I'm sure you guys were pretty excited. So with that, I'm going to cut some of that stuff out and just talk about a few key points. So with wildfire, I know last year and I had spoke, and as we speak with most councils, so far as of 2 hours ago, we've had 620 fires in Arizona. We've had 62,851 acres, and with our service area, we've had the pleasure of working most of these fires, and that's kind of what I want to talk about as we go through this. When we get into our fire season, we align with the Forest Service that are around us. So they're in stage 2, went into that last Thursday. Friday, we went into what's known as a P4, and simply what that is when you're sitting at home, your lights may flicker, they come back on. They could do that for 2 times if something gets into the wire. Now it just goes off. And the reason it goes off is because there's potential. It's usually outside sources that come in contact with our line. It could be a vehicle, wildlife, or a trampoline. So with those, once that happens, we have to go and patrol that line to ensure we're not going to create an issue. The DSAP that you guys see in front of you, that's defensible space around poles, really remarkable. We just had the Crook fire, covered substantial acreage in a lot of wooded areas, and we lost no equipment there. And the reason we didn't, we just completed this program. So when I talk to people about clearing areas, and there's a quick little slide on that, really important. It has the potential to save your property and your neighbor's property. So that's where we were at with the DSAP. And again, with all of our processes, first responders are our top priority. Public is our second following.
Excuse me,
Pardon?
can you use the microphone?
Yep. The second is the public. And we found as we go through those processes, fire department, law enforcement, they need us to de-energize things for specific reasons. And as we're down in the area, our mountain area has feeders that run into here or electric lines that run into here. They may be de-energized for that reason. So as we continue to go forward, those are things that we can see through the process. Defensible space, when we talk about that, it's interesting. In the last 72 hours in Prescott Valley, we had the privilege of 2 trampolines going into wire. And thankfully, we're in that no-shot status because they both took wire down. And when that happens and it comes down to the ground, if it's in that 3-shot, it seizes that load, earth, and it just energizes. And then in addition, off Valley, if anyone had the fortunate opportunity to get stuck in that, we had a sanitation truck take down 2 poles. And he didn't realize he took 2 poles down. Kept driving, right? So those are things that we have to be involved with when it comes into the awareness of how we energize areas. This page here, if you utilize APS.com, you'll see an APS outage map. In that map, we do a pretty decent job of putting restoration times in, but they change because as we start getting involved in what damage is there, it's going to take more time to get. So we always tell people APS.com, look at that outage map, and that will give you the information you need on restoration times. We also work hand in hand with Darla DeVille, keeping in contact with emergency management county supervisors in these areas. So a whole lot of engagement. This slide here, and it'll be actually the last one I talk about. I personally don't like seeing candles running around a house in dry situations where we are, especially in the populated areas of home. So I usually share. I had a customer who had adopted kids out in Chino Valley, and they always got scared when the power went off. And they didn't have enough flashlights. But what they had was a lot of solar lighting outside. So I told her, bring that lighting in and kind of make it a game for these guys. I do the same. I have different landscaping lights. We do lose energy. I just bring those in and use them. Keep the candles looking pretty on the shelf, right? And then flashlights. So those are just some little tricks that help out in those times. Makes it a little bit easier. So that is all I have. Any questions?
Sir, you did a great job. We appreciate everything that APS does. The team up here is, number one in my mind. So I appreciate everything that you guys do. And what are the odds of 2 trampolines in 1 week, huh?
Within 72 hours. It was
72
awesome.
hours.
So as we go around, we do talk to the individuals and say, you may want to secure that thing because if it goes in, it has devastating effects.
Sure.
Yeah.
Again, thank you, sir. Council, anything else?
So question on that, if it goes into the lines, then are they responsible for the repair and the damage, whatever?
So we'll turn it into claims, yes,
And then the claims would try to go back after the homeowner?
correct.
Okay.
It's just finding out what quarter mile it came from.
Well,
This
the other
last
thing
one
is
was
you-
rolling
that-
down the
at
road
that-
for quite a
At that
while.
point, you don't say you own it anymore.
Yeah, I'm not sure who that was.
Yeah, I thought my neighbor had one, but I don't know.
I know my neighbor had one, but
Okay,
no.
thank
But, and again, first and foremost, mitigating the situation before we
Understand.
do anything else.
Okay.
And it's always windy in Prescott Valley.
It is. Well, thank you very much for your guys' time.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thanks, Darla. Moving on to item 2C, Energy Audit and Analysis Project CIP number F512. Mr. Osborne, welcome, sir.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. We just wanted to take a minute to let you hear about and maybe understand, answer some questions about our energy audit project that we're moving in on. We started looking at this first of the year. We chose Snyder Electric about the beginning of March, and since then, they've been getting to know what our town needs, what we're looking for, where we want to grow, and that type of thing. And we've been gaining a level of trust and comfort with them. So we're really at the point now where we're ready to put them under contract and move on and really start getting into the work. But we would like Brandon from Snyder Electric to give you a brief presentation and then maybe answer some questions that you might have about the contract.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
Welcome, sir.
Mayor Palguda, council members, as Bill mentioned, Brandon Woodward with Schneider Electric, and we're excited. Thank you. We're excited. I'm excited to be here to give you a little insight into the initiative we're working on with town staff, and give you an opportunity to ask questions and provide your insight on that. So, as I'm going through this, please don't feel like you got to wait to the end. Feel free to stop me at any time and ask any questions you've got. So. As I dive in, I want to highlight one of the large reasons as to why town staff is looking at this. You can see them up there. Looking at your general plan, your 2035 general plan, words like sustainability, energy and water conservation, economic growth, et cetera, appear over 200 times in that document. So it's clearly something that's important to council and to the community. And so our goal is to try and address as many of those goals as possible. And you can see just a handful of the many goals that are in the 2035 general plan that deal with this. And so these are kind of the backbone in the back of our mind of everything we're looking at. We're hoping we're filtering through this lens. In addition to, I know that Town Council recently approved the 4 strategic plan elements, and our project, our solution should impact most, if not all of those elements. And so a quick glimpse into kind of where we've been, where we're at, where we're headed. As Bill mentioned, the town did an RFQ earlier this year. 3 companies like Schneider provided presentations on that, proposals, went through interviews, selected Schneider Electric as their partner to do this next step, which is called an investment grade audit, which is a deep dive look into town facilities, systems, and equipment to help identify areas to save energy, save money, save water, modernize facilities, et cetera. It's a pretty comprehensive look into all of your facilities and infrastructure that will take the majority of the next year. So almost 10 months is kind of what we're projecting for this. And so that's our next big step, is this investment grade audit. And we'll be working with town staff for the better part of a year to develop that. And then come early next year, we should be back in front of you sharing, hey, here's kind of what we found. And that's not the finish line. We're not just doing another audit to sit on a shelf. Our goal is to do that audit and then actually implement the vast majority of those recommendations. So helping the town to implement those, do the construction, and even the savings guarantee post-installation. So that's kind of where we're headed, is the investment grade audit, and that's what will be up for consideration for your approval next week at the council meeting, is the approval of that investment grade audit agreement, which there's a copy of that in the back of the binders that I provided for you guys. So real quick on Schneider Electric, because oftentimes I get confused for 2 guys in a truck. We are a big company. We're in over 100 countries, have over 130,000 employees, been around for over 100 years. It's the largest company you've probably never heard of. So we are, as you're selecting a partner for this, you're not selecting a small electrical company, you're selecting an innovator in the market and in the industry. We do anything and everything having to do with building automation, energy management, and connected technologies. And then my group, what we do is exactly what I'm talking about with the town today. We've done over 900 of these projects now in 40 states across the U.S., saving our partner cities and school districts over $3 billion. So been doing this for a long time, made a big impact on the savings for those partners. All right, so what are we actually doing? First, I want to look at what are you spending on utilities. Still finalizing some of the details on this, but roughly you're spending about $1.6 million on your utilities, most of which is electric, followed by water, and then a small sliver of gas. So the question becomes, if we're able to help the town get more efficient, lower those costs, how can we reallocate those what are currently wasted utility costs into modernizing your facilities? And so currently you've got some energy inefficiencies throughout the town that are causing these 2 budgets or buckets to be higher than what they need to be. Our goal is to identify and address those inefficiencies, moving from this to this, with that top portion being a guaranteed savings. And so essentially what we're doing is we're taking money that would be wasted on your utility costs that you're overpaying each month, taking that, reallocating that towards upgrading your facilities. With more energy efficient equipment, modernizing those systems. So in addition to the energy savings piece being the funding vehicle for this, we're also looking at how can we identify and maximize federal grants, utility incentives, and then even increasing economic impact and revenue generation for the town. So this is usually where I get the most questions. I'll pause here. Anything I can clarify on this or any questions you've got so far?
Have you ever failed? Have you guys ever done an audit and it didn't make much of a difference?
So I'll tell you what, not often. We'll look at these, and there are times we'll come in and we'll assess facilities and say, hey, you guys are doing great. There's not much to be saved. It's not very often. It's probably 1 in about 50 to where we have to come back and say, hey, kudos to you guys, great job, you don't need us. But more often than not, we're able to find something that is worth addressing, looking at further.
Gotcha. Thank you.
All right, so these are the 4 goals of this project, lofty goals that we've identified with town leadership. Number 1, like I've mentioned, we want to save water, save energy, save money. Also, we're looking at how can we modernize your existing infrastructure. How can we provide innovative solutions to some of your challenges and your current needs? And then lastly, like I mentioned, advancing your 2035 general plan and your strategic plan goals. And so to give you a glimpse, now as we're doing the investment grade audit, that's our next step, is that assessment. And so we'll have a much better feel of exactly what we'll be doing, but this should give you a glimpse as to some of the things that we're currently having conversations about that town staff has mentioned as either a need or a priority. Everything from the easy stuff, LED lighting and more efficient air conditioning, to looking at doing an assessment for a pilot program for electric vehicle charging stations. So if I drive up here in my theoretical Tesla, I've got somewhere to charge. I don't have to go down to the other city down the hill and charge there, spend my money there. So looking at how can we do some of those things, bring some economic impact into the town with things like that. So next step is the investment grade audit and how that works. It's a deep dive into all of your facilities, should last the next about 10 months. And the way that's structured is like I mentioned, this is not the finish line. Schneider Electric plans to implement those recommendations. And so assuming that we get done with the audit, do a project with the town, there's no cost for the assessment. That's just part of the development that goes into the final project cost. But if, however, at the end of that, we get to the end of the assessment and the town says, we're going to go a different direction and we don't implement a project, it's at that time that there's a cost for to recoup part of the development and design costs that Schneider spent over the last 10 months to develop that. Last slide here, I'll give you a look at our immediate next steps. As I mentioned, next Thursday should be up for council consideration for approval of that contract. And we'll spend the next handful of months developing that, be back here early next year with some of our findings, recommendations for where we see opportunity for Prescott Valley. So with that, I will kick it over to you for any questions or insight you can provide.
On the cost, is that paid in a lump sum, or is that paid as you go along? Do we pay so much as that goes along, or how does that work?
When you say
It's
cost,
$138,000 ballpark, right? Is what this is going to cost, is that correct?
for the assessment, so let me clarify, the actual assessment will cost a lot more of that. We are not in the assessment business, meaning that's not our revenue generator.
Right.
We do projects. And so if the town decides, there's no cost throughout this. If at the end of this, we don't implement a project and go actually put some shovels on the ground and change some light bulbs, that's when that $138,000 is due. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So I have a quick question as well, and maybe you can answer this or maybe not. I'm not sure, I don't have an electric vehicle, so I don't know what it costs to maybe implement the charging stations. Do you have a roundabout idea of what a charging station could cost?
Not an easy, I would answer it with how much does a car cost? Reason being, it's all over the map. It depends on, are you doing level 1, level 2, level 3? How many? There's so many factors that go into it, and the largest part is typically not even the charger, but the infrastructure behind it. So as a ballpark, and don't hold me to this, I'd say it's usually in the neighborhood for infrastructure, as in bringing the actual power to that and the charger itself, $50,000 to $100,000 per charger. And again, there's so many factors that go into it. I hate even throwing out a number, but that's about what you'd expect. And the reason I called it a pilot program is I wouldn't recommend going and throwing a ton of these all over town. It's, hey, if I'm going to the event center or I want to go to Mountain Valley Park or any of these areas that are going to bring people in, having somewhere to be able to charge so they can actually get home.
That's what my question kind of was going, is do other communities then provide them? Or I thought maybe it was something a private sector handled, like maybe Walmart has a charging station in the parking lot or something. I didn't know if that's typical in other communities.
So it can be, and it all depends. There are a lot of these are private, but there are plenty of communities that are realizing we're missing out on opportunities for a number of things. Sierra Vista, for example, we're implementing 8 charging stations there because they're saying, hey, we're missing out on these large sports tourism opportunities because people can't get here and get home. So they're implementing a small amount. And for an example, I have a cousin in town who has a Tesla, and he wanted to go mountain biking up here. And first thing he does is look for where is there a charger, and the answer is there's not one in Prescott Valley.
Because most people charge them at home and then go out, but once they get there, then what, to come home, right?
Exactly.
And
yeah.
then do you know what a typical charge cost is to a vehicle when they're out?
Minimal. I'd say less than a tank of gas, but most things are less than a tank of
Right now,
gas
that's
these
not
days.
little.
Yeah, it all depends on, and typically the town sets that rate as, hey, do we want this to be a revenue generator for us, or we're trying to get, most of the time it's more budget neutral on, we just want to recoup the cost of implementing this and of what it costs to run it, so that you can provide a resource for the community and tourists.
Okay, I don't mean to be naive, but it's the way of the future, and I'm one of those technically challenged people to begin with, so, yeah, okay, thank you very much.
Happy to help.
I believe that I have seen recently on Facebook, someone brought to our attention that we do have stations here in Prescott Valley, and you would know.
The only ones that I'm aware of are, there's one outside the school over by the gym, my second home, Anytime Fitness. There's a couple over there. And then is it Audio Adrenaline has one?
Yes.
Yeah.
In Prescott Valley?
They are in Prescott Valley.
Really?
Yeah, and I just saw on Facebook, someone was pointing out there are 3 that were just put in, and they had a picture. I was trying to find where it was, but
Well, apparently my data is a few months old, but yeah, when I checked, when we were first looking at this now almost 6 months ago, there were, at least what I found online, no charging stations, some in Prescott, but none in Prescott Valley.
Well, that's good to know then, right?
Yeah, good to
Now
know.
he can come up and mountain bike.
Yeah.
Awesome, okay.
so we're coming up in the world.
Sounds like it, yeah, slowly but surely.
Sir, what makes your company different from your number one competitor?
What makes us different? No easy questions tonight. So I would say the innovation piece. I think that most of my competitors, they want to come in and they want to be your energy partner and they want to help you save energy. And we want to do all that. But I think that puts you inside a pretty narrow box. We want to be your innovation partner. We want to come in and help you not just save energy, but hey, have you thought about this? Because I'll tell you what, the EV chargers, for example, that's not going to save you a ton of energy. But what that may do is help bring in some additional tourism that wasn't there previously. So that's where we really do things different, is we don't confine ourselves just to that narrow energy box. We want to come in and help talk through some creative solutions and just some of the things that we've heard from town staff and some of the things we've brought to the table already before we even start this assessment. There's some really, really cool opportunities and initiatives that we're excited to explore and investigate for the town.
Awesome. Councilwoman, Mr. Davidson.
Could you maybe expand for the council the work that you're doing specifically in Sierra Vista around the sports tourism? That's been a big interest of our community for a long time, and we've got some really exciting things that have recently opened up to our community, and we want to certainly grow those things. So maybe just some of the work that you're doing there and the innovation that's being done with that community.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that segue. So Sierra Vista, for those that don't know, it is very similar to Prescott Valley in population, about 45, 50,000 people, an hour and a half southeast of Tucson. So we're down there real close to the border. And a few years ago, we engaged with them. They went through a very similar process, selected Schneider Electric, overall the energy guys, because they had this vision beyond just saving energy of, hey, we really think we can be a sports tourism destination, but we don't know what the heck we're doing. We need some help with that. So we were able to come in there and help them save energy, but also we did a handful of artificial turf fields, LED sports field lighting, and then help them kind of market themselves as a sports tourism destination. And over the last 3 years, they brought in millions of dollars worth of economic development, economic impact from these tourism. And I just saw the numbers recently, and I mean, it's literally in the millions. It far surpasses what we're saving on the energy and water side from them bringing in. I think they brought in an additional 18 tournaments last year just as a result of this, because they've got more playability on their fields, more visibility, and they're really marketing that. So that was the first phase, and then we just 2 weeks ago we're starting construction on a second phase, taking that to the next level, doing things like EV charging for these events, and any number of that. We're doing additional artificial turf fields, sports field lighting, et cetera, with the focus of saving energy, but also, hey, how can we get in more tournaments, more people into Sierra Vista, into the community that aren't currently coming here or aren't currently able to come here.
Great. Council, anything else?
Yes, I'm sorry, I've forgotten your first name already.
Brandon.
Brandon. So these solar smart benches and tables, could you talk a little bit about those? And also, what other areas would you be using solar?
So 2 questions there. The solar smart benches are pretty straightforward. They are a bench that, I don't have my phone on me, but this came from conversations with Sierra They're saying, we've got these tournaments, and we have a mom who has kids in soccer who's in these meetings. She goes, we're going to these tournaments, we're going to these games, and everyone is fighting to find somewhere to charge their phone. So setting up these smart benches to where it's a bench that has solar on it or a solar canopy, and then you're taking your phone and just setting it on a wireless charger to be able to charge your devices. That's as simple as that is. So benches to charge your phones, or tables with solar umbrellas to be able to charge your devices is kind of what that looks like, strategically placed throughout town.
This seems to me more like a luxury rather than something that would be necessary. Am I?
Well, I mean, and that depends on how you look at it. If you're looking for somewhere to sit in the shade and be able to charge your devices, they're using this as an opportunity to be able to sell this as a plus. Because these tournaments that they're bidding on, they're trying to sell themselves. Well, here's why you should come to Sierra Vista and bring your millions of dollars worth of tournament money to us. And so these are these small amenities that they're really using to sell and leverage themselves and get selected for these large tournaments. So we're very strategic on where we'd put that and where we'd recommend that, but like anything, splash pad, for example, is that an amenity? Or, I mean, is that a luxury? Probably, but it's something that you're providing for the community and for people to come to differentiate Prescott Valley from other communities.
So the $138,000 is what we will pay you if, regardless of whether we go forward or move forward with any suggestions. So, but if we do go forward with any of the suggested construction ideas, then that will be absorbed into the costs.
Yeah, so if assuming that the town does a project with Schneider Electric, at the end of this, there's no cost for that 138 is a moot point. Those costs for development and design are just part of the construction contract. They're part of the design of the actual project that we'll be implementing. So there's no cost there. If we get to the end and the town says, we're going to do something different, that's when there's that charge. And that's, like I said, not a revenue generator for us. We will spend far more than that. We will lose money if that's the situation. We don't do this to do audits. We do this to make an impact on the community and build these projects.
Thank you, Brandon.
Yeah, thank you.
Councilwoman?
Jim Lawson, my guy in the truck, just got me some information that, and if APS was still here, they would have been able to tell us. But APS did put in 3 charging stations at Gabriella's, behind Gabriella's on Valley Road.
Oh, fantastic. Is that just recently?
Yes, like I don't even know if they're active yet,
Yeah.
but they're installed, so.
Oh, that's fantastic. So those are the first 3 that I've heard. And I'll tell you what, APS has done a great job. They've got fantastic programs that are helping bringing these into communities for little or no cost, but that program quickly filled up. So hope to expand that.
Nicely done. Anything else, sir? We appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you all. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.
Moving on. CH2M OMI Jacobs Amendment 3 Utilities Operations Maintenance and Management Agreement. Mr. Keith, welcome, sir.
Good afternoon, Mayor. Good afternoon, council members. This afternoon, we're going to be presenting amendment number 3 of the 5-year contract for operations and maintenance with Jacobs. But before I get into my presentation, I've got Aaron Richardson. He's the project director for the Town of Prescott Valley, and he wanted to share a few highlights and some of the challenges from this past year. So I'm going to hand it over to him, and then I'll step back up here and go through my presentation.
Afternoon, everybody. Appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Went ahead and cut down this slide deck for your viewing pleasure. So just get started, just want to run through a quick culture of caring moment, go through some recognitions from customers in the town, go through some of our operations, some highlights, some of our community involvement, and then some of the regional support that we leverage on this project. Culture of caring moment. Since last year I came and shared with you that we had gone 3 years with no recordable incidents, and with the amount of exposure that the team has out there, it's quite impressive. Since then, we've continued that trend, now gone over 275,000 hours without a recordable incident. A large part of that is by planning our work, and during that time, we've completed over 10,000 pre-task plans, which is, basically a hazard assessment of the work before we get started. The leadership team is out in the field, engaging with our teams, doing safety observations, observing work, identifying gaps, and then working to close those gaps. We've completed over 900 of those. Something I was pretty proud of is through this entire pandemic, there were no COVID cases transmitted on the project that we're aware of. We had some pretty strict guidelines in place during the pandemic and even still today. So that's something we're pretty proud of. And we even received a significant milestone award from Jacobs for that safety record. So I wanted to start today by just I wanted to highlight one of our groups, the distribution team. A lot of these recognitions that we get from the customers out in the town are for the distribution team. And they're out repairing the leaks, doing turn-on, turn-offs, things like that. I just wanted to throw a couple numbers. I was looking at some of the data before I came. On a monthly average, we are putting out 900 door hangers, which is a notice that the water is about to be turned off. So we're averaging about 900 of those a month, about 550 service calls, about 25 leak repairs a month. So that's upwards of 1,500 potential engagements with customers, and usually they're not happy. They're getting their water shut off, or we're interrupting their service by fixing a break. So I'm just really proud of this team and from some of the recognitions that they get from the town. So I wanted to share a few of those, highlight that right out the gate. Something you guys, I think everybody has seen before. Another thing I wanted to highlight is our efficiency, and this is pulled from the American Water Works Association. They do some studies to kind of see what the average is for service connections per employee. And you can see in the 75th percentile is about 595 service connections per employee, and we're upwards of 1,700 per employee. So we run very efficient on the water side, and the trend continues on the sewer connection side as well. A few things I believe contribute to this is one, our people. We have great people. Our leadership team averages around 15 years of experience from our supervisors and project managers, and have a great team out in the field. I believe another piece of this is the town's willingness to invest in your water system and go forward with some of these capital projects to stay ahead of some of these issues. This allows us to fix things the right way when we're out there and not putting Band-Aids on things and moving on and coming back and fixing those things 2-3 times down the road. So just wanted to highlight that and run you through some of the operational challenges and some of the highlights for this year. As everybody knows, supply chain has been a huge issue for us this past year, so it's been a real challenge having to do some workarounds with procurement to get what we need to get the job done. Staffing levels, everybody's familiar with that as well, really having to look at the wages and raising wages for some of the team, to keep them on. We're having to bring people in at higher wages than we had in the past just to get people to apply for jobs. So we've had quite a few open positions over the years just trying to get people on board. That's something we work through. Of course, material prices goes right along with that procurement issue. You probably all remember last year, I believe in July, we had quite a monsoon that came come through the town. Really had a big impact on us at the plant. Running that plant can, it doesn't take much to upset that plant. And when you're flooding out and bringing in water into clarifiers, it really knocks that process out of balance. And it took quite a while for the team up there to get it back in order. That was a big accomplishment for them up there. We also had our Long Mesa office flooded out, so we had people working from home. We had to improvise and send people up to different offices while we were doing pretty much a remodel and replacing the flooring and some of the walls in there. So that was a big challenge for us this year. And then, of course, COVID still affects us. Like I said, we have a pretty stringent protocol, so we're out. When any of our people come down with COVID, they're out for longer than what you would normally see from some of the health folks, how long they tell you to stay out. They're staying out longer, so sometimes we'd be 2 weeks before we could get somebody back in, and sometimes longer than that. So that was a challenge we had to work through. But through all that, we did have some good highlights this year. The water system out here was awarded Outstanding Performer by Arizona Department of Environmental Quality, and that was for not having any violations for the past 5 years. So that's a pretty big deal. We were pretty proud of that. And then also what that does is take us from a 3-year inspection period, that knocks us back to a 5-year inspection period from ADQ. So that's a big win for us. We were also awarded an environmental award, and that was for environmental compliance, and that reads that we went above and beyond what's legally required to protect public health and environment. So something else we're pretty proud of this year. We got a rehab done on Fat Chance, which is our biggest producing well in the field. Produces about 5 times what the average of the other wells produce. So that was kind of a big one. It's always nerve-wracking when you're pulling a well out and putting it back in and make sure everything works. It was a little challenging, but we got it done, and it's back ready to go. Culverts was a big one this year. 144 culverts cleaned, and that's something that our collections team takes care of above and beyond, taking care of the collection system and doing the routine cleanings and doing sewer backups and things like that. So that was a lot of extra work on that team. Pretty proud of that. 17 additional services projects that we got knocked out this year on top of our base services. And then, of course, I had mentioned the 4 years with no recordables. Community involvement is always something we enjoy being a part of. I'm sure the parents probably didn't appreciate loading their kids up with candy at the parade, but yeah, we always try to be a major sponsor at the parade and be involved with the parade. The Community Counts Kinship Program, that's something else that's near and dear to us, and that really helps families that are raising children that are not their own. So that would be a grandmother, an auntie, an uncle, raising kids that aren't theirs, and it really helps with some of the medical resources, some educational education activities, things like that. And then we also partnered up with the Parks Department this year, and I believe they were able to get the petting zoo rolling and also have a band going for the 4th of July this year. So. And then last slide, I believe, I just wanted to highlight one of the big benefits of Jacobs is we do have some back reach, and we have a lot of even regional resources that we can reach out for when we run into issues with staffing levels, which we did have to call in some wastewater folks. In fact, we have somebody here right now that came from a different region to come out and help out when we have gaps in our team. Maintenance as well. We had some gaps there. We had some people come out and help us get some projects accomplished there. Anything from the wastewater side of things to the operational technology side of things with the SCADA system. We bring people out for that. Predictive maintenance. We utilize a regional maintenance team to come out and help us do that. So a lot of back reach with Jacobs, and we utilize that often. So, and like I said, short and sweet. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Councilwoman?
How are you doing with staffing?
Staffing has been a challenge. Like I said, we had to really reassess our wages. I think that was a big piece of it. As we started raising the wages, we've seen some applicants come in. So we are starting to fill some of those roles, luckily, here in the last couple months. So that's been positive kind of for the team and a boost in morale for sure.
Because you're getting a ton done. So just imagine if you were fully staffed.
Yes, and it's really nice that we really work together. While we have kind of 4 separate departments, we really have people that can swing both back and forth, and maintenance can come help out with wastewater. Wastewater can help out with collections and so on and so forth. So we really work together to try to get these things accomplished.
Cool. And I did not realize that you were behind the petting zoo at Extravaganza, but that was an awesome addition. So good job. Thank
Glad
you.
you enjoyed.
I wanted to thank you for all the work that you did with the culverts. My street was one of those that you did a lot of work on, and I'm hopeful that if we do have a monsoon this year, and that will be the answer to many of the problems that we experienced with flooding on our street. So if there's other situations with the culverts, for example, there's another area where there's a tree growing in the culvert, and it's an obvious dead tree, and it's not obviously, landscaping for the owner. Would you be the individual that we would call, or do we call someone else?
I've got a guy.
You've got a guy.
No, absolutely, that's something we can take care of, no problem. We have the tools on the back of the truck to be able to take care of that kind of stuff.
Okay, great.
Awesome, thank you, sir. Mr. Keith?
Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. All right, I'm going to jump into this proposed amendment number 3 to the Jacobs 5-year contract. A little bit of background here. Jacobs has been providing services to the town since 1993, and the town renewed the 5-year contract back in July of 2020. That contract expires in 2025, and we come together and negotiate with Jacobs annually, and we negotiate the changes in scope and compensation. So this is the status and direction of this next amendment number 3. It is going to have a 6.8 base fee increase proposed, and Jacobs will be adding an additional employee to help address the increased workload. And the additional scope and services and new additional services projects will be in the next few slides that I'll share with you. This is the table of the base fees. This is one of 3 sections of the amendment. As you can see, we've got wastewater, water, reclaimed, recharge. We've got the current contract amount at $4.1 million and the proposed amendment at $4.4, and that's a total increase of $281,000. This is the next section in the contract, and this is simply reimbursables. These are repairs. As you can see here, we've got biosolids, water meters. We just reimburse Jacobs for those as they spend the money, but I did want to highlight, we did increase the wastewater repairs from $450 to $500. We've seen a little bit of a trend upward in the repairs that we've been doing, so we added a little bit of money in that category. And also in the water repairs, we bumped up from $400 to $500,000. And then we have additional services projects. These are projects that we identify early on in the year. They're things that Jacobs sees while they're operating the system, things that they run into, challenges that they might have. We discuss those projects early on, and we get them on a list, and then we prioritize those each year. And they're projects that fall into the expertise or purview of Jacobs. The scope is generally pretty flexible. Sometimes we get into these projects, we look things over in great detail, and then you run into unexpected things as you move through these projects. So the scope, like I said, is generally flexible, and we also have contingency funds to address some of those potential issues, which I'll show you in the next slide. This is the table for the water additional services projects. And I did want to bring to your attention, if you look towards the bottom at the FlexNet MXUs, those are the radios that we were looking to install this past year. We had budgeted to install those so that we could get our remaining 7,000 customers onto the customer portal. Our plan was to do about 2,200 to 2,500 a year for the next 3 years. Unfortunately, as Aaron was sharing a little bit, we've had some procurement challenges. Our supplier, Census, due to the microchip shortage, they were not able to provide us any of those 2,200 Census MXUs. We went ahead and we kept it in the budget. The $55,000 that you see on that table there, that is just for labor to install. And then in the town's budget, we have $360,000 to purchase those MXUs again this next year. I'm hoping things improve. The latest information I'm getting is a 12-month lead time due to the microchip shortage. So they have been able to keep us in meters, and they've also been able to keep us in MXUs for our new customers that are coming on so that we can continue setting meters and providing water to new customers and new developments. So yeah, that's been quite a challenge, and I just wanted to bring that to your guys' attention. And this is the list of additional wastewater services projects. And if you guys have any questions about these at the end of my presentation, I'll open it up and we can get into detail on some of these if you see anything up there. that you have questions about. This is a summary of the contract. These are the different contract sections. We've got the base fees at $4.4 million, the reimbursable items at 2.2, and then we've got the additional services projects at 1.9 million, for a total contract value of $8.5 million. And that's the end of my presentation. I'll be happy to take any questions that you might have.
Councilwoman.
On the repair costs that went up, was that due to material costs going up, or just the repairs themselves were a little larger than you originally thought?
Councilwoman Hepperly, that was a combination of both, actually. Yeah, we're seeing that on both ends of the spectrum.
Okay, thank you.
And just for everyone at home, this is something that's common for you to come and say, hey, this is where we're at mid-contract and we need to make some adjustments, correct?
Yes, yeah, we typically annually negotiate the scope, and each year we have those additional services projects, and that's a normal thing that we do within that 5-year contract.
Thank you, sir. Anything else? Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now, folks, it's time to adjourn. Thanks for coming out.